Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. I heard it before I saw anything. The kind of laugh people use when they are performing for an audience. It carried from the kitchen to the hallway, light and sharp against the tile. I had just come in from the garage, still wearing my work jacket, thinking about leftovers and a hot shower before bed. My name is Jerome Taylor. I am 38 years old, and I manage operations at a logistics company in Detroit, Michigan. I was reaching for a beer when I realized my wife had her friends on speaker. I slowed down without meaning to. The laugh came again, and then the sentence that reset the room around me. I control him with one thing. Works every time. I did not stomp in and clear my throat like some sitcom husband who cannot take a joke. I just stood there with my fingers still on the refrigerator handle, listening to the cold hum of the compressor and the sound of my own breathing, suddenly slow and deliberate. The refrigerator light washed my hands in a tired blue-white glow. I eased the door shut before it could make a noise and leaned back against the counter just out of sight of the doorway. The voices were familiar, the same two women my wife met for brunch, the same two who always said we should keep the spark playful, which I had learned was code for treating our marriage like content for their group chat. My wife, Janelle, sounded energized, like she had just landed a promotion inside some invisible game. I do not remember every example she gave, not word for word, but I caught the structure. If I pushed back on something, she would freeze me out. If I disagreed, she would pull away. If I wanted closeness, it became a bargaining chip. She listed it like a strategy she was proud of, and her friends rewarded her with gasps and laughter. It is strange what your mind does in the first few seconds after you hear something like that. It flips through a mental drawer you did not know you had been filling. Tuesday night, 2 weeks ago, when she brushed past me like we were strangers because I said I could not make a last-minute dinner with her friends. The weekend I suggested we stay within budget on furniture, and she went quiet for a day. The times I reached for her, and she offered a smile and a promise for tomorrow, a tomorrow that usually slipped away. You do not immediately think betrayal. You think, oh, that is why. I did not need to hear the silly encouragement from her friends or their fake concern about boundaries and standing in her power. I heard enough. I stepped away from the doorway and took the stairs like a man who remembered something he left upstairs. Calm, steady, no scene. Our bedroom was dim except for the streetlight outside pressing a pale bar of light across the wall. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched a dusty line glow on the dresser. It is funny what your eyes land on when you're trying not to feel anything big. A speck of lint, a ring of water on the nightstand, the crooked corner of a picture frame. I make schedules for a living. I juggle bottlenecks. I keep trucks moving across states in snow and heat and road closures. My job is to anticipate pressure points and remove them before the whole system backs up. I have built entire routes in my head while a driver sat on the side of Interstate 94 in a snowstorm. That night, I realized I had been treating our marriage like a system that would self-correct if I just kept working. Give it time. Offer patience. Suggest we talk. Plan a weekend. Try again. I thought consistency would set the tone. I thought effort was the answer. Hearing my wife say she controlled me with one thing turned all of those dials at once. I changed into a t-shirt and sweatpants and sat at my desk without turning on the lamp. The house had that winter quiet, furnace cycling, an occasional car muffled by the closed windows, distant laughter from downstairs that no longer sounded like my life. I opened my laptop out of habit, then closed it again. I wanted the facts. The facts were simple. For months, maybe years, Janelle had swapped collaboration for manipulation and dressed it up as normal relationship rough patches. She had been training me. Reward, withdrawal, reward. I had been cooperating. There's a clean, almost clinical calm that comes when the story finally clicks. It is alignment. I thought back to small signs I had ignored because loving someone gives you good excuses. The way she scheduled every part of our life and called it spontaneity. The performative affection when we were around other people that shut off like a faucet the second the door closed. The subtle eye rolls when I suggested anything that did not involve her crowd. There was the sudden flood of language after her book club at the co-working space. Phrases like owning my power, setting the tone, withholding access. I'm not mocking growth. People try on new ideas to see what fits. But she had downsized our marriage into a vending machine with one button, she liked pressing. A text buzzed on my phone from my buddy at work, Leon, asking if I was still in for a Saturday hike at a state park outside the city. I almost typed that I would let him know. Instead, I typed yes before I could talk myself out of it. Small word, big shift. I realized how often I'd been the one to cancel those plans because I wanted to keep the weekend open in case Janelle decided we were good again. When did I start living on standby? When did I hand our calendar over to her mood? Downstairs, the laughter crested again. Then a door closed and footsteps moved toward the garage. She must have stepped outside with her phone for privacy, the kind she did not think I needed when it came to my feelings. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling fan blades turning slowly. I thought about weight distribution, the kind you deal with when you're loading freight. Too much weight on one axle, you wear it out. Shift it too far forward, you lose traction. Shift it too far back, you fishtail. Our marriage had been fishtailing for a while. I had kept correcting the wheel. She had been enjoying the slide. There is a temptation to dramatize these moments, to imagine flipping a table, shouting a line that belongs in a movie trailer, slamming a door. That is not me. I prefer plans you can measure. So I made one. And it started with a boundary, so quiet she would not hear it first. The one thing she thought controlled me would no longer be something I chased. I would not beg for it, negotiate for it, or sit in emotional timeout to earn it. That lever was coming off the machine. She came upstairs later, hair smelling like that expensive shampoo she orders from some online boutique. She set her phone face down on the nightstand the way she always did. I looked over and said, "Hey." My voice was neutral, not cold. Janelle smiled back, soft and practiced, and crawled into bed without reaching for me. That used to sting, especially after a week of her distance. That night it informed me. It was data, not a verdict. Information is clean. It asked for action, not reaction. I did not sleep much. My mind was busy redistributing weight. I opened the notes application on my phone and wrote a list. Gym before work, 3 days a week. Hike on Saturday. Call my brother, Reggie. Book the routine medical checkup I had been postponing. Oil change. New boots before winter really set in. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would impress a therapist or an inspirational podcast. They were just small things that belonged to me, reclaimed without fanfare or announcement. The kind of adjustments that make a system stable again. Somewhere around 2 in the morning the furnace kicked on, and Janelle shifted, pulling the duvet tighter around herself. I watched the streetlight stripe inch lower on the wall and thought about something my father used to say when he taught me how to drive on icy back roads outside Flint. Do not overcorrect. Point where you want to go and hold it. So that is what I did. By morning, the house smelled like coffee and toast. I went downstairs, poured a cup, and set my running shoes by the door. Janelle mumbled a good morning from the hallway, kissed my cheek, and asked if I was coming to dinner with her friends this weekend. I have plans, I said. I watched the micro-expression, the tiny flash of surprise before she pressed it into a casual shrug. She hated when I used that sentence first. I took a sip of coffee and made a note to pick up trail mix for Saturday. Something was off. Yes, but not just with her. With me too. I had let our system run on a variable I did not control and call that love. 2 mornings after I overheard the call, she floated into the kitchen with that light mood she puts on like perfume when she is primed for a win. I was packing a protein shake and trail mix for the hike. I had already confirmed with Leon and another coworker, Patrice. Janelle watched me measure almonds like it was a new language. Big plans? She asked, leaning against the counter in one of those soft robes she knew used to distract me from anything else. Yes, I said. Early start. I will be out most of the day. There was a tiny pause, the kind that measures obedience. We were going to look at rugs with Kelly and Nicole, but okay, she said. Her tone had that light edge that usually pushed me into repair mode. Before, I would have offered to move things around, meet them after, turn it into a couple errand, prove I was flexible. This time I said, hope you find a good one, and snapped the lid on the container. Her smile looked like it had missed a step. Not a collapse, just a wobble in a routine that used to be hers. The week stacked similar moments. She initiated what I had started to call the closed shop routine after I asked her to loop me in before committing our weekend to her friend's brunch crawl. She went distant, polite, unbothered. The old me would have chased her mood, trying to fix what she never admitted was broken. Now, I answered a few emails, hit the gym, and slept fine. The silence did not feel like punishment anymore. It felt like weather. You bring a jacket, or you do not. The clouds do not get to decide for you. Tuesday night brought the first real pressure test. A client's warehouse automation update went sideways, and I stayed an extra hour to stabilize the drivers and docks. I texted Janelle that I would be late and told her to start dinner without me. When I came in, there was takeout on the counter and a look on her face that said I had missed my cue. We were supposed to go by Monica's, she said, stacking containers like she was arranging evidence. You said you would make it. I said I would try, I replied. We had trucks sitting for 40 minutes. I had to fix it. I was tired, but my voice stayed level. Janelle gave me the kind of smile people use when they're convinced you just admitted to a crime. Right. Work comes first, she said. Her words dangled between us like bait. Tonight it did, I said, still calm. Tomorrow might not. That sentence used to earn me a freeze, so sharp I could feel in my teeth. She lifted a shoulder, took her food to the couch, and turned on the television with the volume slightly higher than normal. I ate at the counter and read dispatch notes. She checked her phone often enough that I knew she was narrating this to someone. Maybe the same friends from the speakerphone. Maybe a different audience. Either way, I did not audition. On Thursday, she tried the leverage trick over something small. The homeowners association had emailed about trimming the maple out front, and I had booked a crew for Saturday morning. She wanted to do it next week because Kelly was coming over to shoot photos in the living room, and she thought a ladder would ruin the aesthetic. They had an opening Saturday, and I took it, I said. If we reschedule, we may not get another slot before the holiday rush. She stepped closer, lips curving into that smirk that used to mean the game had begun. We will see how much you miss me tonight, Janelle said, almost playful, like a parent threatening to withhold dessert. Her friends loved when she told stories like that. Okay, I said, rinsing my cup. No pleading, no bargaining, no joke about how much I would suffer. The game needed a chase. Without one, she had to decide whether she was actually angry or just bored. She chose bored and went upstairs early. I finished a spreadsheet, set my alarm, and slept fine. By the weekend, the pattern was lit up like runway lights. Every time I did not bend, she moved to one of 3 stations: quiet removal, sarcasm, or sudden sweetness. I noticed the sequence long before she realized I had. Saturday morning, while the tree crew set up outside, she put on the robe that used to derail any plan I had, even yard work. She wandered out with coffee and asked what I wanted for breakfast in that soft voice couples fall in love with. I am good, I said, checking the invoice. They will start in about 10 minutes. I want to be available in case they have questions. Her face did not crack. It recalculated. You could almost see the gears turning as she shifted. Janelle tried a different angle, reminding me about an art fair downtown. We could go after they are done, she suggested. Make a day of it. We have not done something fun in a while. I already booked a tune-up for the car at 1 o'clock, I said. After that I am going for a run. If you want to go to the fair, you should. It sounds nice. Simple, boring mind. That afternoon, she moved to the 2nd station. You have been distant, she said, folding laundry she never folds, like proximity might summon the old program. Is everything okay? Her eyes searched my face for guilt. Everything is organized, I said. Work is heavy. I'm catching up on things I let slide. Things like sleep, cardio, oil changes, lunch with my brother. I did not raise my voice. I just named what had been missing. She heard the subtext, even though I did not underline it. Her jaw tightened, but she let it go with a shrug that wanted to look casual. The shrug did not land the way it used to. Something in the room had shifted. On Sunday, I decided to do something I should have done months ago. Speak once, clearly without padding. We were both making coffee at the same time, our usual parallel choreography. 2 people moving around the island like a practiced routine. I kept my eyes on the mug and said, I'm going to say this without a debate attached. When you pull back to influence me, it does not make me want to move toward you. It makes the whole thing feel cheap. She blinked like I had opened a window in January. I did not do that, Janelle said. Her tone climbed a half step, defensive but not yet angry. I'm not asking you to agree, I said. I'm telling you how it lands. I am not playing along anymore. The silence that followed felt like standing in a doorway between 2 rooms. One was familiar and cramped. The other was unknown but honest. The water finished boiling. Something old in me wanted to rush, to soften my words, to refill the space with a lighter version of the truth. I let the silence stand there with us, steaming up the air. After a moment, she laughed, that practice-light sound she used when she needed to dismiss something without addressing it. "You are being dramatic," she said, shaking her head. "I am being specific," I replied. That line ended the scene without the usual messy third act. She took her coffee to the living room and scrolled her phone with thumbs that moved too fast to be calm. I took mine to the garage, cleaned the workbench, and put air in the tires. It is amazing how many small tasks a man lets slide while he is waiting for permission to live inside his own house. The following days tightened the screws. Whenever I held my line, Janelle invented an audience. She would narrate me to her friends on speaker as if I were not in the next room. "He is on this new independence kick," she said one evening, her voice carrying down the hallway. The first time, I nearly laughed. Independence from what? My own habit of over-accommodating. Instead of arguing, I put on my shoes and walked a mile before dinner. The air was cold enough to sting inside my nose. It felt clean. My pace smoothed out with each block, and by the time I circled back to our street, my shoulders had dropped an inch. Midweek, she tried weaponized concern. "You seem unhappy," she said, tilting her head with the expression she reserved for social media posts about mental health. "Is it work? Is it me?" Her voice was soft, but there was a test under the cushion. "I am clear," I said. "That is different from unhappy." She frowned. "Clear about what?" she asked. "Clear about what I will and will not do." I answered. "I will listen. I will compromise when it is actually mutual. I will not respond to tests." The word tests landed. Her eyelids flinched before she smoothed her face. "You are imagining things," Janelle said, a little too quickly. "You always overthink." "Maybe," I said, and went upstairs to call Reggie about the fishing trip we always talked about but never committed to. That night, after the call, I booked the cabin near a lake up north that we had been eyeing for years. The old script would have had me hovering around Janelle, asking if that weekend worked for her friends or her schedule. The new script did not require permission to see my own brother. I still did normal husband tasks. I took out the trash, replaced the furnace filter, fixed the cabinet hinge that had been squeaking for months. I did not ghost my own house. I was simply refusing to be steered by scarcity. Janelle kept trying to sell me a drought. I started carrying my own water. The next Saturday, she arranged a double date with a couple who loved conflict disguised as playful banter. "It will be fun," she said. "They are hilarious together. You will see." I could already hear the jokes, the little digs about who wears the pants, the knowing glances in my direction. "I'm going to pass," I said. "You should go if you want. I have an early morning run tomorrow." She stared at me, searching for some sign that I would cave. "It will look bad if you do not come," she said. "To whom?" I asked. She did not answer. Later, she left without another word about it. I stayed home, cooked a steak, video chatted with my nephew Calvin about his science project, and fell asleep reading with the television off. She came home late, made just enough noise to register that she had returned, then climbed into bed without comment. The silence between us was not cold anymore. It was honest. It did not require me to fix it to breathe. The pressure built differently after that. Less smug, more tentative. She tried a direct appeal one night, sitting on the edge of the couch like she had news. "We should schedule a weekend away," she said, watching my face instead of the calendar. "Reset, you know. Get back to us." "I'm not against it," I said. "But a weekend away is just decoration if the terms underneath do not change." She frowned. "What terms?" she asked, as if the word was new. "Respect is not contingent," I said. "And closeness is not currency." For once, she looked at the coffee table instead of at her imaginary audience. The old lever had stopped working. I saw the moment she realized she did not have a replacement part. I was steady. The man she thought she could spin like a weather vane had turned into a post set in concrete. She could walk past and check the wind if she wanted, but the post was not going to move because she whistled. The decision did not arrive with fireworks. It clicked into place like a seatbelt. One motion. Final. I stopped living like a man waiting for rations dropped from a helicopter that might never come. There were no announcements, just a quiet update to the operating system. The first change was subtraction. I took the lever off the table. At night, I read on my side of the bed with the lamp set low, shoulders loose. When a thought wandered toward bargaining, If I just do this, maybe she will. I brought it back like a dog with good recall. She noticed by the second evening. A hand on my shoulder. A playful tone. The familiar robe. A soft laugh. I smiled and asked how her day had been. Nothing more, nothing less. Morning routines hardened in the best way. I went to the gym before sunrise because my legs needed work I had been putting off. The quiet weight room became a relief. No commentary, no tests, only gravity telling the truth. I added 5 minutes to the rowing machine each session and logged it without fanfare. Numbers did not care who approved. By the end of the week, I was sleeping deeper and waking clearer. That alone told me how much mental bandwidth I had been spending walking the maze of her moods. I rebalanced my calendar. Lunch with Reggie on Wednesdays. Non-negotiable. Friday coffee with a friend from my first warehouse team. A quiet guy named Damon who never says much but always remembers birthdays. I did not announce any of it. I just stopped canceling. The small flinches I used to feel when I pressed send on those plans were gone. It turns out anxiety can look a lot like permission you think you owe someone. Janelle tried to pull me back with nostalgia. She put on the playlist from our first year together. She set my favorite whiskey out next to a low glass. She revived old inside jokes that had been packed away for years, as if she were flipping through an album, searching for the right page. I laughed in the right places, thanked her for the pour, and went back to the cost overrun spreadsheet I was working on for a client. I was not punishing her. I was refusing to turn closeness into a performance. My phone became neutral ground again. I stopped waiting for the buzz that meant the climate had changed, and I was allowed to be happy. I turned off half my notifications and left the other half for work and family. When she texted a midday selfie with the caption, "Miss me?" I replied, "Meeting in 5 minutes. Call you after." When she sent a calendar invite titled Reset Weekend, I accepted it with a note, "Discuss terms first." She ignored the note and started browsing boutique cabins. I let the search sit without chasing it. Silence is not a weapon if you do not swing it. Mine was not punishment. It was the absence of a chase. When she went cool after a decision she did not like, I did not patch the temperature. I let normal life sound like itself. Dishwasher hum, laundry tumbling, a game playing quietly on the television. The house stopped feeling like a test site and started feeling like a place again. Work sharpened without the constant domestic tug toward appeasement. I made one call I had been avoiding, to a client who thought our team should eat their rush fees because their procurement manager could not plan. We cannot absorb that. I told him, here is the real timeline, the real cost, and 2 options that save you money if you plan ahead. I waited for the pushback that usually came. Instead, he said, "I respect the honesty, Jerome. Send the revised schedule." At 5:40 in the evening, I shut my laptop and did not check email again until morning. The world did not fall apart. At home, Janelle escalated to proximity. Movie on. Blanket half shared. Her leg finding mine. My body remembered being rewarded when I caved to that kind of contact. Body memory is powerful, but it can be retrained. When she leaned in, I let be exactly what it was. Present, small, pleasant. Not a contract. Not an installment plan. She withdrew first, surprised that warmth could end without extracting a promise. Friends invited us to a game night with a group of couples who loved performative affection. The kind of evening where people kiss for the camera but glare in the kitchen. Before, I would have used the night to demonstrate how fine we were. This time, I said, "I have an early run tomorrow. You should go if you want to." She stayed home instead, sitting beside me on the couch with her phone in her hand, scrolling without reading. Every few minutes, she glanced up like she was waiting for me to ask what was wrong. I only ask questions I'm willing to carry to the end. I did not ask. I made one symbolic move that mattered only to me. I set up a second pillow on the small couch in the home office, the spot I use for reading and short naps. I did not sleep there. I just made it ready. It was a quiet declaration that peace had options. Knowing I could choose space without staging a scene made the bedroom feel less like a negotiation table. One evening, she came home in a dress that made the room feel suddenly quiet. Hair down, makeup done, the soft scent of her perfume trailing her. She stood in the kitchen doorway and smiled. This time it looked real. "How do I look?" she asked. For a second, I saw the woman I had courted years ago, the one who used to meet me halfway without keeping score. I walked over, kissed her forehead, and said, "You look incredible." Then I went back to chopping peppers for dinner. She watched me for a moment, waiting for an invitation, an offer to cancel whatever I had planned. Later, she drifted over, wrapped her arms around my waist, and leaned into my back, the familiar press I used to interpret as a test and a promise. I covered her hands with mine, felt the warmth, took a single slow breath, and stepped aside to drain the pasta. I could feel her confusion in the way her hands fell away. Control had been replaced by contact. Contact, by itself, was not enough anymore. Quiet boundaries kept accumulating. I stopped debriefing my entire day to someone who had turned details into weapons. I still shared parts of my life. I just chose them instead of dumping everything at her feet. The rest I gave to people who actually asked and listened. I moved my running shoes from the closet to the front door like a man who expects to use them. I replaced the dead porch bulb without asking whether the warm tone matched her recent color palette. I scheduled a dental cleaning and showed up for it. You learn quickly how much of your life you have deferred to someone else's temperature when you start booking your own appointments again. One night, Janelle broke the pattern. No performance. No scripted concern. Just a question in the dark. "Why do you not want me?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but did not sound like bait. It sounded like fear. We were lying side by side, staring at the ceiling. I found the only answer that would not restart the old loop. "I want a marriage that does not use closeness as leverage," I said. "If that is not what we have, I will not pretend it is." The words felt heavy and clean at the same time. She said nothing for a long time. The silence did not carry the same edge it used to. It felt more like someone sitting with a diagnosis they suspected but did not want confirmed. By the end of the month, my days had a shape that did not wobble every time the house did. I could feel her testing for edges less often because the map had changed. She was learning that I would be kind without being compliant. I had become a man who could walk through his own rooms without asking permission to feel okay. That is what silent withdrawal actually is when you strip the performance away. It is not ignoring. It is not spite. It is stopping the chase. It is refusing the script where you beg for basic respect. Guilt arrived first, dressed in concern and carrying a mirror I was supposed to stare into. She stood in the doorway of the office while I logged mileage from my last hike and said she felt shut out. Her words were careful, her tone softer than usual. "You have changed so much, Jerome," she said. "It feels like you are punishing me. I did not even know how to reach you anymore." The script told me to apologize for changing. I adjusted. I said instead, swiveling in my chair to face her. The way we were operating turned into a negotiation I never agreed to. "I'm not punishing you. I am refusing to bargain for respect." She frowned like I had mispronounced a word we both knew. "You are making everything so intense," she said. "Why can we not just go back to normal and start over?" "We can start honest," I said. "That is the only version I am willing to live in now." She left the room without answering. A minute later, 2 plates rattled in the sink louder than necessary. The house did not shake with them. When guilt did not land, she tried seduction as a reset button. New perfume. Late-night whispers in the hallway. Her thigh resting against mine on the couch while a show played that neither of us was actually watching. I kept contact as contact and nothing more. I did not weaponize distance, but I did not pay for closeness with compliance. She tightened her grip for a few days, then loosened it when she realized I was not going to supply the rest of the scene. Blame came next. She stood in the kitchen one evening, arms folded, while I rinsed dishes. "Your withdrawal is cruel," she said. "A real husband would fight to fix things instead of going cold. You are being petty." I set the plate in the rack and looked at her. "I am being precise," I said. "I am not going to be measured by what you choose to deny." She shook her head. "You are twisting words," she said. "I'll let the accusation sit. Arguments that depend on your heat cannot survive without it." The kitchen felt larger when I stopped supplying fire. She shifted again, this time to panic. Not screaming, but speed. There were sudden invitations to double dates. Last-minute suggestions for quality time that required me to cancel what I had already booked. A rushed idea for a weekend trip that skimmed right over the conversation it was supposed to fix. "We just need to get away," she said one night, dropping a brochure for a resort on the counter. "Everything feels heavy. A spa weekend would reset us." I heard the speed in her voice and slowed myself down on purpose. "I'm open to time together," I said, "once we are aligned on the terms underneath. I am not using a weekend to cover what we will not talk about." She stared at me like she did not recognize the man in front of her. Her friends noticed before her family did. The same two who had cheered her speakerphone monologue started texting me directly. "Everything okay between you and Janelle?" one of them asked. I replied that we were working things out and left it there. Whatever story she had been telling them ran out of runway when I stopped providing the counterstory that made them feel useful. At a birthday dinner for one of those friends, one of them leaned in when Janelle went to the restroom and whispered, "You seem different." In a good way. I just nodded. Janelle saw the whisper and the nod. That mattered. Later, the first public slip happened at a neighbor's cookout. She told a small circle that I had been distant and needed to relearn how to be affectionate, laughing like it was a harmless quirk. Our neighbor Andrea, who has 3 teenagers and a sharp radar for nonsense, asked calmly, "Is that mutual?" The table went quiet in that pleasant suburban way where people pretend they did not hear something heavy. I could have rescued Janelle with a joke. I did not. She changed the subject to the grill. On the walk home, carrying a bowl of pasta salad I had not wanted to bring, she turned to me. "You let them think badly of me," she said. "You just stood there." "I'll let them think for themselves," I answered. "That is different." She walked the rest of the way in silence. Her family entered from another door. Her mother called on video chat and asked if we were all right. I told her we were recalibrating and that I was committed to a healthy outcome, together or apart. The phrasing slowed everyone down. Her mother does not like slow. "Marriage is about working through things," she said. "You cannot just threaten to leave every time it is hard." "I agree," I said. "Working through things is not the same as bargaining for basic consideration." Later that night, Janelle said I had embarrassed her. "You were being dramatic with my mother," she insisted. "Clarity always looks dramatic to someone who has used a fog," I said. She stared at me like I had spoken another language. The most revealing day came when she tried to reassert control with a gesture she assumed would override the conversation. She booked a fancy spa resort for a last-minute weekend and texted me the confirmation with a winking emoji. No discussion. No checking about my schedule. It used to be the kind of grand move that shut me up and made me grateful. I replied, "It looks nice. We can go once we solve the thing this trip is trying to avoid." She did not respond for an hour. When she finally did, the sentence was a slammed door. "Forget it." I went to the gym, hit my lifts, ate the same breakfast, and sent Reggie a link to the fishing license portal. By afternoon, her slammed door message had cracked into a longer one about how relationships require compromise. "I agree," I wrote back. "I am not going to compromise on being treated like a partner." She left that message on read. Silence did what it always does when you let it. It told the truth everyone was too tired to repeat. 2 days later, she pivoted to sweetness in its largest form. Candlelight in the dining room. Reservations at a restaurant downtown that usually books up 3 weeks in advance. A dress that could have paused traffic on Woodward Avenue. I appreciated the effort and told her so. At the table, she reached for my hand and said, "We should get back to us." "Which us?" I asked. "The version where affection is a signal for negotiation, or the one where affection is just how 2 adults treat each other because they respect one another no matter the outcome." She pulled her hand back like the table had shocked her. The waiter arrived with water, oblivious to the charge in the air. Timing has a sense of humor. There is a version of this story where a man uses his new steadiness as a weapon. That is not mine. I still did everything my name was on. I paid bills, fixed the gate latch, checked tire pressure, mowed the lawn. I answered when spoken to and did not disappear into another room for days. But I did not participate in reenactments. That is what broke the game. The rules did not change loudly. They expired quietly. She would pick up a piece and find it no longer fit the board. Other people started seeing it without a speech from me. At her sister's barbecue in the suburbs, someone made a "wife controls husband" joke that would have earned a cheap laugh last year. It landed flat. My brother-in-law asked me about a trail near a park outside the city, and we spent 10 minutes talking about elevation gain while the rest of the noise faded into background. Janelle watched the conversation without inserting herself. On the drive home, she said I had become aloof. I kept my eyes on the road and said, "I have become congruent." She had no comeback for that. The panic phase peaked on a Wednesday night. She came to bed late and finally said the quiet part as a real question. "What do you need from me?" For a second, everything around us dropped away. No friends, no audiences, just the woman I had married, sitting in a dark room with the man she was not sure she knew anymore. I need partnership without performance, I said. If you want me, want me. If you do not, say it, but do not price it. She stared at the ceiling and nodded once, small, like someone who has just heard a medical result they feared might be true. The next morning, she canceled brunch with Kelly and stayed home. No speech. She folded towels and asked how my call with the automation vendor went. Real questions. Normal ones. After lunch, she drifted, got restless. I could feel the old engine turn over in her chest. She almost reached for the lever and stopped. That counted. Growth does not announce itself with trumpets. Sometimes it is just one reflex skipped in favor of another. A week of small resets followed. She initiated a walk without her phone in her hand. She said yes to a plan I had already made instead of saying, maybe, and waiting to see if something better came up. She touched my arm, once in passing with nothing else attached to it. It was progress, not a miracle. Then a message came from her most dramatic friend, an invitation to a night out to remind you who you are. Janelle read it aloud, laughed once, and said she might go. If you want to go, I said. My voice was steady. No edge. No sarcasm. She studied my face for a tell and found none. I will see, she said, and set the phone face down on the table. That night, she did not go. She sat on the back steps instead and watched the sky leak into the fence line as the sun went down. When I joined her, she asked if I wanted tea. Sure, I said. It was almost nothing. It was also not nothing. The game had not disappeared because I won. It had withered because I stopped feeding it. In the quieter space left behind, people were starting to see who we actually were without props. Janelle tried one last move, a half confession wrapped around a half apology. I thought that was how women kept control, she said, eyes on the mug in her hands. I thought that was what I had to do to not feel small. I nodded. It is how people avoid honesty, I said. Not just women. She exhaled like she had been holding her breath for months. We did not solve everything on those back steps, but the performance lost its audience. Without applause, it could not stand. I went to bed certain of one thing. I was reachable for truth and unreachable for games. For the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. The next move would be Janelle's first real one in a long time, or the last gesture before the curtain dropped. Either way, I was going to sleep fine. We did not end with a slammed door or a suitcase on the lawn. It came down to a table, 2 mugs, and a list I kept short enough to remember. Saturday morning light, the good kind, clear and square on the wood. I had slept well. Janelle looked like she had practiced 5 different openings and abandoned all of them. I spared us both the warm-up. I'm going to put my terms on the table, I said. Not as a threat. Just to be clear. She nodded like she was bracing for impact. Number 1, I said. Partnership without performance. No more using closeness as leverage. If you're upset, say it. If you want me, want me. Do not price it. Number 2, mutual plans. My calendar is not open inventory. We decide together. I am not a spare piece you move around after everyone else has picked a spot. Number 3, we fix what is underneath, not the optics. No more reset weekends to avoid the real talk. If this works, it has to work on an ordinary Tuesday night after takeout, just as much as at some mountain cabin or fancy resort. I stopped there. I had more, but more gives people places to hide. She wrapped both hands around her mug and stared into it like it might whisper the right sentence. And if I cannot do that, she asked quietly, then we separate, I said. We do it with respect. You have your path. I have mine. But I am not living inside a negotiation again. The old version of me would have rushed in after that, softened the edges, offered an escape hatch. I let the quiet sit. It was not a threat. It was a description. She looked tired in a way that finally felt honest. I did not know who taught me that was power, she said. Maybe I did not want to feel small. You are not small, I said. You just kept choosing the smallest tool. We finished our coffee, waved at 2 neighbors passing by the window, and talked about nothing for a few minutes to breathe again. Janelle went upstairs to shower. I wiped the coffee rings off the table and booked myself into a Sunday boxing class. The next week was uneventful in the way that tells the truth. We moved around each other like 2 adults, sharing a lease and a question. On Wednesday night, she put her phone in a drawer and sat on the couch without armor. Can we try a conversation where no one keeps score? She asked. Yes, I said, and turned off the television. We talked about the small betrayals that do not make headlines. Canceled plans no one admits were canceled. Jokes that land like jabs. We talked about how easy it is to replace attention with control, because attention asks more of you. She said she had learned to negotiate, because negotiating felt safer than simply asking for what she wanted. I told her I had learned to appease because appeasing felt safer than walking away. We were honest enough to hear how ugly that sounded out loud. We did not touch while we talked. We just put our hands flat on our own legs and let words be the only thing in the room. By Friday, she asked me to go with her to a counseling session she had scheduled. Someone practical, she said. Someone who gives homework, not speeches. I agreed, with one condition. No theater in that room, I said, and no theater when we come home. All right, she said. The therapist, Dr. Foster, asked us to list our non-negotiables, then asked us to prove we could honor the other person's list without being policed. That homework was either going to be the bridge or the goodbye. We did the work for 3 weeks. She apologized once without brackets or asterisks. I'm sorry I treated you like a variable to manage instead of a partner, she said, looking me in the eye. I accepted once without turning it into a lecture. Thank you, I said. I needed to hear that. I planned a weekend breakfast. She did not forget and then punish me for our history. She planned a dinner and did not make a test. In bed, we started simple. Hands. Conversation. No script. There is a difference between someone meeting you and someone rewarding you. It felt like meeting. It also felt fragile. The reality check came unscheduled, the way it always does. Her friends planned another night out to get the old you back. This time, she showed me the text instead of hiding it. I guess they missed the version of me that complained all the time, she said. I shrugged. If you want to go, go, I said. I am not going to argue about your social life. She looked at me for the old tell, found nothing, and said, I think I am going to pass. She replied to the group chat. I am working on different things now. I do not need the crowd tonight. The thread went quiet. She set the phone face up on the counter like that meant something. Maybe it did. On Sunday, we sat in the car outside the grocery store and faced the question I had been carrying like a stone in my pocket. Do you want this marriage? I asked. Or do you want the version where I am, just a shape you move around so you do not have to feel vulnerable? Her answer was clean. I want the marriage, she said, and I am willing to feel foolish learning how. It might have been the bravest sentence I have ever heard in a parking lot. I believed it enough to try. Trying did not mean erasing my exit. I kept my boundaries where I could see them. I kept my own calendar, my gym time, my Wednesday lunches with Reggie. I did not turn my life back into an open-ended suggestion box. 2 months later, I noticed I had stopped checking the emotional weather before I smiled. We hiked without keeping score. We argued about a lamp and solved it in 20 minutes without dragging in everything from 3 years ago. She grabbed my hand while we crossed a busy street because the light changed and the world was moving quickly, not because anyone was watching. That small, automatic gesture said more than any speech. I did not romanticize it. We did not transform into the couple posting golden hour photos with captions about doing the work. We became two people who can say no without losing yes. That is not glamorous, but it is sustainable. There is an alternate timeline where Janelle picked her crowd over this table, where the lever won because it was easier than changing. In that timeline, I pack a bag and leave quietly. I forward my mail, change my passwords, and move into an apartment across town. Not out of spite, but out of alignment. I know that version because I kept it real the entire time. I kept an apartment listing bookmarked. I kept a list of furniture I would take if we divided the house. I kept my head clear enough to go if respect never showed up. The option made me honest. It made her honest too. One evening, months after our first real conversation, we ran into Andrea at the grocery store. She looked at us, really looked, then smiled. Whatever you two are doing, she said, keep doing it. Janelle laughed. A small laugh that sounded like thanks without an explanation. We walked home with bags full of pasta and yogurt and nothing dramatic. At the front door, she paused with her keys in her hand. You know you could have left, right? She said. Her voice was quiet. I did, I said. That is why I could stay. She held my eyes for a moment, then unlocked the door. We went inside, set the bags on the counter, and moved around each other without flinching. I do not know how this story lands for anyone else. I know how it lands for me. Respect is not a clause you add later. It is the ground you build on, or is quicksand. The lever Janelle thought controlled me is scrap metal now. In its place is something simple. Two people who show up without a price tag attached to their affection. If that ever changes, if the old game tries to creep back in with a fresh coat of paint, I will not negotiate with it. I will not stage interventions or beg for decency. I will wish her well, hand her what is hers, and walk out with my name, my peace, and my ordinary Tuesday night. Because staying is a choice, not a sentence. And respect is not negotiable. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.